my name is Jonathan Williams. I'm host today of our regular series, Laguna Woods Stories. We're fortunate to have as our guest today, Tom Nash, who is the vice president of the Laguna Woods Video Club. I am the president of the club. Early on, Tom, you interviewed me at the inauguration of my presidency of the club, and I get to return the favor.
Thank you. I've been familiar with being the guest. I have been recording this program now for about 10 years, more than 100 in the can, so to speak, and this is the first time I've been a guest on the show.
Wow, put me on the hot spot here. I'll try to do my best, Tom.
Okay, you'll do well.
Well, thank you. One of the things I want to highlight that we're emphasizing today at the Video Club is life stories. Mm-hmm. And we're going to learn a little bit about your life today, Tom.
Sure.
And I'm fascinated. It's a remarkable story. I was thinking this morning, you know what? That would make a great script. We should invite a script writer to look at your story and create a good script. It has a lot of adventure, mishaps, drama, and some marvelous accomplishments we want to get to.
It wasn't all smooth sailing. One thing you can say about my life story is it's long. I was born in 1936, 89 years ago, so my story is long. I was also born during the Great Depression, so it started off pretty tough financially. My mother tells the story of existing for a month on just field corn. That's the only thing they could afford to buy, and she would grind it in a hand grinder and cook it for mush. And the economy was so bad, that's all they could afford. So it was a tough time.
I guess we don't have to have a lot of nostalgia for those days. Well, that was during the Great Depression.
That's right.
And then you grew up in unusual, by today's standards, situation. You were living on a ranch in Oregon?
Yes, I lived for 5 years on a ranch that belonged to my grandmother. We raised sheep in the Coast Range Mountains in Oregon, and very primitive conditions, no electricity, outdoor toilet, and all of that. For me and my brother and sister, it was wonderful because we had all this land to roam and explore. But to my mother especially, it was pretty difficult learning to cook without electricity and learning to light the house with kerosene lamps and all of that.
Well, in your remarkable life, you've lived through what we would almost consider primitive conditions to today, where you are, in some aspects, at the very front of technological change. What a remarkable story.
That's true. I've always been fascinated by technology and science and so it's fun to live in a high-tech world.
Well, you started off with an interest in electronic engineering.
My major in college to start with was electrical engineering because I really wanted to work in radio. I was fascinated with radio, and I'm kind of a techie, so I thought that the engineering side of it is probably where I belong. After a couple of years of struggling with math classes and all of that, I decided I'm better off in the production side, the performance and production side, which I majored in and I loved.
I think you were a bit nudged in that direction, if I recall.
Well, I was able to sort of create an imaginary graph of my successive math scores, and they were not going in a good direction, we'll say.
Okay. Well, I think you made the right choice because you then went on to have quite a career in radio and broadcasting.
Right. Well, I worked in the first 15 years of my career was in radio, and I always imagined that radio was my career. I loved it, and 5 of those years I was working for an organization called Far East Broadcasting Company, which operates radio stations in the Far East, obviously. And we were situated on the island of Okinawa, and the organization had 3 stations, the most powerful, broadcasting into China from Okinawa. And then we had 2 less powerful stations, and the least powerful was in English, and it was for the about 100,000 Americans who were on the island at the time. It was during Vietnam, and it was a R&R area and a staging area for Vietnam.
Well, you were still a young man, relatively speaking, in those days, and you had considerable responsibility.
Well, yeah.
You were reaching out to a lot of folks. Well, then we need to circle back a little bit, because there's another part of your career that has been crucial from the very beginning, and that is your Christian faith.
Mm-hmm. I went to a boys' camp when I was 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that age range, and that's where I accepted the Lord, accepted Jesus as my Savior, and it was very simple to me, but it's very profound and changed my life at that time. Prior to that, I was terrified of ending up in an iron lung, and somehow God took that terror away, and so Christianity has been a major theme throughout my life.
It has been. And one thing I observed looking back at your life is the path is never straight, but it's not your path.
Well said.
That's the theme that comes up for me, and I read your story.
Right.
Through all the turns and trials and tribulations and accomplishments,
right.
It's certainly been a challenging life, and it's a fair share of drama, I may say.
Yeah, probably a lot of the drama was self-imposed, but you learn from your mistakes,
Well,
and I made plenty, and so hopefully I learned something from at least some of them.
I'm sure you did. Well, I think you've had some wonderful accomplishments. Your career started off in radio and broadcasting, and you've shared with us a little bit about your adventures in Okinawa.
Right.
And that wasn't the last of it, by the way. But then you went on to achieve some academic success.
Well, yes, I got into graduate school in a radio, television, film major at Michigan State University, and during that year, my wife decided she'd take a better offer, and left me with the 2 children to start with, and so we couldn't return to Asia as I had planned. So I stayed on and got a doctorate, and during those years of study, I got involved in a little production company, a film production company. Video was not mature enough at that time to be a very big contender. So our little company made films for various entities, including state governments and different organizations, and so I got quite a bit of first-hand experience in film production.
You learned not only academically, but you learned very much in the field, and also doing productions, as you still do today.
Yes.
You haven't given that up.
Well, I love it. Yeah, it's fun.
It shows. It shows, Tom.
Thank you.
One of the other things that you said about so many adventures, I mean, they could be a little story of its own. I really think so. The adventure you had in the Middle East, where again, you picked up your trade and went about reaching out to people. So that was in the Middle East.
Right. I was challenged. I went to a Bible study at my church, Mariners Church, a non-denominational church nearby, and they were having a prayer meeting for people in the Middle East, just for the Middle East. And for some reason I was attracted to that, so I went to it. And then I was somebody in that group knew that I taught in the radio, television, film area at Biola University, and so he said the church has just started a partnership with a broadcast ministry in the Middle East. And they need somebody to represent the church at the partners meeting in island of Cyprus. Would I be willing to go? And, yes, I was. And that began that was about 25 years ago. That began a period of time in which I spent a fair amount of time and effort teaching courses for this group and helping with their promotional activities and that sort of thing. So this is an organization called SAT-7 for satellite television, broadcasting in 4 languages, well, 3 languages over 4 satellites. In Arabic, of course, the big language there, but also in Farsi. Your wife speaks Farsi. I don't know if you do.
Very little.
And also in Turkish. So they have satellite channels in all those areas. I've gotten to visit all those locations of promotion and whatnot. So it has been quite an interesting thing for me to do in my retirement mainly.
Oh, okay. Well, wait a minute. I see you were chairman of the film, video, what's the full description?
Well,
at Biola University.
We started it in 1977, 12 students, and we called it Radio, Television, Film. It has now grown to 450 students, and is now the School of Media Arts and I was going to say sciences, but that's wrong. But so it's now Cinema Media Arts is the title.
Okay. Well, the world has changed so much in your lifetime. From radio, I imagine in my mind, radio stations had tube machines, devices that you dialed up and analog practically. And nowadays we're in
analog, of course. Back then there was no digital audio, but there is now.
Well, the world has changed so much since you've been hanging around.
Right. Well, whereas we used to actually shoot film because that was the only way to get an image quality good enough for most purposes. Now digital exceeds film in quality,
right,
and of course much more efficient and cheaper. So so hardly anything is shot on film anymore.
Right. Well, let me make sure our audience is aware that this is Dr. Tom Nash, who knows about everything when it comes. I must say that, Tom.
Oh,
you've certainly forgotten more than I'll ever learn. But also, it bears mentioning, you've graduated. You've brought students along who've gone on to some pretty significant success in your career, so that's certainly something to be proud of.
Indeed. Thank you. That's what, of course, thrills a teacher is to see his or her students doing well, and I've enjoyed the success of some of my students. I'm, directing major motion pictures and things
Exactly.
like that. So
well,
fun to see.
It bears saying that if you, as part of our community, have an interest in doing videos, you certainly want to pay close attention to classes we offer at the Video Club. Right. Yes. Many of them taught by our very own Dr. Nash. A whole roster of
I don't know
people.
who that would be, but very old Dr. Nash, as it turns out.
Absolutely. Well, so life has been good. Life has been challenging. Tell us a little bit about some of the, I find it so interesting, some of the moments in life when there really is a God. Some things happen in your life that I found very compelling. So you tell a story about To the Penny a couple times, which I love those stories, Tom.
My parents were not able to help me with college expenses, and they did not see that as a responsibility, actually. Neither of them had gone to college, and so I was on my own, and so by working and saving for your picking beans and strawberries and among other things, and working as a janitor for the school and different jobs.
Kids today.
Well, I had saved enough for my first year of college, except I forgot I would need money to get there, and that became kind of I forgot that, and realized I had to get there somehow, and so I had some darkroom equipment that I had enjoyed using during my high school years, and a friend asked me, would I be willing to sell it? And I said, well, I had bought most of it from a neighbor for $25, and I said, oh, just give me the $25. And he said, no, it's got to be worth more than that. I'll give you $60. So I went to the train station with the $60 in my pocket, not really knowing how much the ticket would cost. I'm sure my dad would have bailed me out if it had been more than that. And I had a few extra dollars. Mother had packed me a great big packet of food so I wouldn't have to eat in the dining car. So anyway, the amount of the ticket was $59.70. And I kind of mused to myself, oh, it looks like God provided an extra 30 cents. But once I got onto the campus, I stuck my hand in my jacket pocket one day and pulled out two little tickets that each said 15 cents. I'd forgotten that I'd had to pay a total of 30 cents to get the luggage onto the train and transferred. So the $60 ended up being to the penny.
To the penny.
Yeah.
And I know that occurred again in your life at some point, but I don't want to call them coincidences. I think they are, at the very least, fortuitous. Yeah. I know that from your faith tradition, they're much more than that. You've struggled, as many of us do, with life and the challenges it presents to us.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned that my first wife left me. I also had two other marriages that didn't work, and that's the great shame of my life and pain that brings. But so that was very, very difficult reality, and I got through it. But it was difficult, of course.
But I think you've been certainly true to the path. You've had your times of doubt and struggle, as most of us do, I think.
I did, yeah. Yeah, when I started high school, I knew I was a Christian. My father believed in evolution, and so I was being exposed to that in high school, and you know, it struck me. Evolution basically says that everything that we know came about by chance, and that seemed to me to be really unlikely, as everything looks designed. But and the Bible, of course, says that there's a all-powerful, all-wise God that created everything, and so they can't both be true. And I came across a book called Science Speaks by Peter W. Stoner, a science professor, who did a statistical analysis to demonstrate that there's so much in the Bible that the writers couldn't have known. The first few verses of Genesis, for example, one thing that describes says that the earth was very diffuse and formless. Well, that's a very good description of a nebula, and we now know that solar systems and planets, et cetera, are formed out of giant clouds of gas and particles, and that was a very good description, right in the Hebrew scriptures, and
exactly.
So anyway, I came to realize that science and faith did not need to be enemies.
Well, I think there is so much in your story that inspires, I think, and so many lessons learned along the way. Finding trust and finding the right path. One of the things I keep coming back to in your story is the path is never straight, but it's not your path.
Well, well said.
And you've certainly shown us that in your life.
Thank
You've
you.
had some health challenges along the way, but what I notice about it, what strikes me as I read your story, is you pull through.
Well, I have to think that I had a hand in that because I have leukemia, and I've had leukemia for 22 years so far. I have the symptoms. I have a high white count and all of that. But it has not gotten worse in 22 years. One of my best friends died of it 5 years after diagnosis, so I figured when I was diagnosed, I figured I probably had about 5 years, but and so far 22 years, so I don't understand it, but I'll take it.
Absolutely. Yeah, health is going to challenge all of us at one point in our lives.
Yeah.
We should be so fortunate to get older and survive, and we're going to have our health challenges along the way. But you've always shown, I think, a remarkable fortitude and determination, and we're so happy that you're still bringing all of your talent and experience to us today, and sharing your story is an important part of that too.
Thank you.
You've had some fun along the way. One of the things that I find interesting is not long ago you took off on motorhome adventures.
Well, after I retired from teaching college, all told about 30 years at 3 different schools, but 26 years at Biola University, and I thought, well, I haven't really had a decent vacation in most of that time. So I bought a little motorhome and took it all the way back to New England, Vermont, where I was born. I still have some family there. And went all over the country for the whole summer. And I enjoyed that so much that I came back. I was single, and so sold my condo, and I lived in a motorhome for 9 years.
Oh my goodness!
So
9 years! I had no idea it was that long.
During the colder months, I was here in Newport Beach, and during the warmer summer months, I was on the road all over the place.
Wow! Now that goes back to.
It was fun.
And you also had a similar adventure growing up. Your parents took a road trip.
Well, that's true. Though we had very little money, since I was born in Vermont, and my 2 siblings were also born there, my parents thought it was time to take us kids back to the land of our birth, and so they bought, on credit I'm sure, a brand new Kaiser, back when there were Kaiser automobiles, 1951, and we made a great big giant loop across the whole country. We had very little money, so we slept in sleeping bags in tents, and we had one night in a motel in 6 weeks, and we didn't eat at restaurants ever. So Mother had a little Coleman gas stove, and she would cook on that. So we basically camped out for the whole time, and just really had a wonderful time. We saw a lot of the historic sites in New England, and went to New York, went to Radio City Music Hall. And,
Wow.
went up in the the Empire State Building, of course, and Statue of Liberty, and
Right.
and did all of those fun things. So I'm sure I learned more in that 6 weeks than any comparable 6 weeks in the classroom.
So, Tom, I know that you're not over yet. A few good years on you, we hope. We really enjoy having you with our club, and you
Thank you.
contribute so much, and not just to the video club. I know that you contribute to other clubs and other activities as well. You're someone who gets a lot of things done and someone who's widely admired. One of the things I know that has brought you so much joy in your life and sadness is your marriage to Darlene.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that. Just
Well, having failed at marriage repeatedly, I was determined never to marry again. And after I was retired, and after my sojourn on a motorhome, I met a wonderful woman at my church, and we started just doing some casual things together, and determined she was widowed, and determined that life would be better for both of us if we were together. So we married, and really had a wonderful, though very short marriage. Unfortunately, she passed away just a little over a year into our marriage, but it was so worth it. During that time, we moved into Laguna Woods, and so she was familiar with that. It was so sad to lose her, but it was so good to have had a good. And she got me started dancing, and she was an avid ballroom dancer that took lessons all the time and got me taking lessons, and I have continued to enjoy dancing ever since.
good for you, Tom. That's exciting. And I know that life is still full and exciting for you. We look forward to many years, God willing, having you and your experience, your knowledge, your insight, and your mentorship to many of us in the club.
Oh, thank you.
It's been vital and wonderful, and we appreciate you. And I still think somebody ought to take a look at your life story and write a script. There's so many good stories there, Tom.
Well,
and thank you for writing that down and sharing it with us. For those of you in the Laguna Woods world who are interested in life stories, we have a lot to share with you.
Thank you.
So thank you for today, Tom, for the interview. We appreciate it a great deal, and we look forward to wonderful things to come.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for conducting an interview very well, I may say, and you have now earned the right to be one of the interviewers that will be regularly seen on this program.
Well, thank you.
If you're willing to do so.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today. Stay tuned for more Laguna Woods stories.